This is really an award that has been won by many people, many of them here tonight. I've been blessed by having such an incredible family, friends, team members, partners that have believed in all these crazy ideas. None of it would have been possible without you. So thank you to all of you. And I'm sorry if I'm a little overwhelmed, but it's kind of difficult to understand how I can be here today. My sister, Terry, please stand up. My sister Terry and I stepped off a boat in Key West in 1965. She was 10, I was 13. It was an earlier version of the Mario boat lift. We got here with my parents, my mother, my father, and my grandparents. And we got off this boat, not knowing English, not knowing the language, really not even knowing what we were doing here. As a Cuban kid, you learn very early on that you don't ask too many questions, because it's really not good for your health to ask too many questions. So I didn't ask them many questions. All I knew was that we were getting away from communism. And I knew communism was really bad for you. Now I want to stand here today and tell you that I thought communism was really bad for you because I read Karl Marx's manifesto. No, I didn't know that. I didn't know what the hell communism was. What happened was that a couple of years earlier, when I was 11 years old, I got home singing this hymn and wearing a red bandana. And my mother, whom a lot of you here know, she's still giving me a hard time today, looked at me and says, "What the hell is that?" And I said, "It's the hymn and the symbol of the Young Revolutionary Pioneers Corps, which I've just joined." She quickly ripped off the bandana and said, "If I ever hear you singing that again, if I ever hear that bandana anywhere near you again, I'm going to kick the shit out of you." So I knew communism was really bad. And from that day I said, I don't like communism. So we got here to the United States, getting away from communism. And then, all of a sudden, as I'm driving here tonight, I'm thinking to myself, how does that happen? How do you have that 13-year-old boy getting off a boat in Key West, being processed in Opalaka, and then at the Freedom Tower? And how do you take that 13-year-old boy and put him in this stage? How do you put him in this stage right here and say this 13-year-old boy is receiving one of the most incredible awards that you could receive in this community? And I've really pondered a lot about that. Of course, I'm blessed. I'm blessed with all my partners and friends and family, people that have believed in me. But as I've thought about it, I've said, there are certain factors that have actually contributed to that. First and foremost is that my mother and father had the fortitude and the guts to put my sister and I on that boat and bring us to a country where we didn't speak the language, where we had no idea where we're going and why. That's number one. I've always wondered whether Lisa and I would have had the fortitude to put Melissa and Manny on a boat and take them to a country where we didn't speak the language and where we didn't know where we were going. And I don't think we would have. So that's number one. That gratitude because they took that decision. Number two is because they brought us to the greatest country in the world, bar none. And that country that received us, gave us a warm welcome, gave my parents permission to work, helped me with Cuban student loans, with Pell Grants, to educate myself, a country that embraced us. So that really made a huge difference. Besides bringing us to the biggest country, to the greatest country in the world, they also happen to have landed in the greatest city of the world, which is Miami, right? Now, luckily for us, at that time, there were no relocations to Martha's Vineyard. So we were not offered So luckily for us, we had to stay in Miami. Thank God. So anyways, that definitely was a big, huge difference. Another big factor in getting me into this stage today, and I know there's a few of you here, so please scream as loud as you want, was Miami-Dade College.
Yeah.
I would not be here today if it wasn't for Miami-Dade College. They took a young, troubled kid that barely graduated from high school, and I went to Miami-Dade College because, again, my mother, the only person that I've ever feared, she said she didn't know what college was. None of our families had ever graduated from college, but she knew I was going to college, whatever that meant. So I went to Miami-Dade just to show her that I didn't like it. And what I found was an embracing environment, a nurturing environment that took this kid that was so confused and showed him what great education could be for you. So I wouldn't be here today for Miami-Dade College. For that, I am very, very grateful. Also, sorry to keep going back to my parents, well, my mother and father taught my sister and I something that has been the foundation of our lives since then. I remember my father driving a cab 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. My mother had 2 jobs. She was a hotel maid, and she also peeled shrimps. Today, if you still ask her, I'm not kidding you, she tells you she can still smell that shrimp, right, in her fingers because she worked there every day and every now. So I saw that sacrifice. I saw what they were doing for us and how hard they worked. And in the middle of all that, they also taught us something that is really critically important. They taught us that if you work hard, you persevere, and you really keep going forward, everything is going to be all right. And you got to have a positive attitude. No matter what happens, you got to have a positive attitude. I don't care. I saw them. They were crying, but they wouldn't cry in front of us because the next day they would get up and they would tell us, it doesn't matter how hard it is, it's always going to be okay. You have that positive attitude. They taught us how to win. Right? And that positive attitude has stayed with us, and that's made a huge difference in why I'm here today. As a matter of fact, today I speak to young kids a lot. I feel I have a duty to speak to them. And they all want to make money. They all want to succeed. And they ask me, what's the secret to success? And I said, sorry to disappoint you, there's no secrets. Really, there's no secrets. But and says, well, give me what is the one most important thing that would help me succeed in life? And I said, well, you know what? The one most important thing that will help you succeed in life is something that I learned very early on, and I learned it from my parents. And the one thing is that you got to have a positive attitude. I don't care. Life is going to bring you bad stuff. Without the bad stuff, you wouldn't have the good stuff. And I tell them, stuff is going to happen to you. It's how you react to that stuff that's really important to you. It's going to be really, really bad. And that is really important because what happens, think about your own lives. Who do you rather congregate around? People with a positive attitude or a negative attitude? All of you have friends. And sometimes you see an ID number and say, oh, shit. It's such and such. Either he or she, they're a drama queen. Every time I talk to them, they have a problem. And then you see the other number, and the other numbers, oh my God, it's such and such. Great, because they always have something good to say. Who do you gravitate to? You gravitate to the positive, right? And that brings you opportunities and brings you friends and people that want to congregate around you. So I tell them that same positive attitude. And that positive can do, you can do it. That positive attitude is the number one. It's really hard, but it's the number one thing that you can really learn. And I tell them, if you say one thing, that's the one thing. And it's really, this evening tonight is a demonstration of that. It was, I think, about 10 years ago that I was invited to speak here at lunch. I think it was for the chamber as well. And my good friend Kevin Levy introduced me. And before he introduced me, he said, Miami's got tech. Miami's got tech. And then I'm supposed to come in to really motivate people, right? And then I come right after him and said, Miami wishes he had tech. But Miami can have tech. I'll tell you why Miami can have tech. Because we got all the ingredients. It's all here. All we need to do is we know that we have the ability and the perseverance to do it. And we know we can do it. And that's what happened. After that, we come up with the idea of Emerge Americas. All of you came together. I mean, starting out with Jane Woolridge, who's here tonight. I saw her earlier. Melissa and I got together and said, we want to see Jane, and Jane got the Miami Herald behind us. We want to see Mark Rosenberg. He got FIU behind us. I mean, we went to the county. Mayor Jimenez came right behind us. I mean, Donna Shalala at University of Miami, so forth and so on. Oh, Jared at Greenberg, Doric. I mean, we were just evangelizing. And every time we made the story, we said, we can do this. Everybody said, you know what, you're right, we can do it. You have the attitude that we could do it. We all came together as a community. All the institutions, academia, government, enterprise, we all came together and we really contributed. Money, hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. At the beginning it was a dream. People laughed at us. And then it happened. All of a sudden, by the way, everybody thinks that it's COVID. COVID obviously helped. No question about the fact. But in 2019, Emerge America's numbers were through the roof. We were already a thriving tech community. We were already a thriving innovation center, an entrepreneur center here in Miami. So that positive attitude got us together and brought us together. What does the future bring? I gotta tell you something. I'm like a kid in a candy store today. I just wish I could have several lifetimes, right? Basically, because I think that if you think about how exciting the internet was in the 90s and everything that it's done for us, think about that today. Think about artificial intelligence. Think about Web 3.0, right? I mean, think about everything that is happening with blockchain. Think about all the advances in biotech. Everything that is happening, right? We are at the very, very beginning of this $10 trillion digitization of industry. The Achilles heel of that digitization happens to be cybersecurity. Guess what? We in Miami are at the epicenter of this. Literally at the epicenter. It really is gratifying for us today. It used to be really, it bothered me a lot when young entrepreneurs and young innovators in Buenos Aires or Sao Paulo or Bogota, when you asked them, their dream was to go to Silicon Valley or Boston or New York. Not anymore. Their dream is to be right here in Miami, right here. Right? And that is the one thing that I am so proud of all of you, because you made it happen. You gave that welcome. You made it feel good, and you created this environment where today that machine just keeps going and going. So basically, all I did, Melissa, myself, the team, we were just agents, right? We were just agents at the right time, and basically kind of bringing you all together. And it's really exciting times coming forth. Now, when I talk about this, which I talk about a lot because it's like talking about my grandkids, I nauseate people, and I tell them how Nico is the best football player ever, how Ellie is the best volleyball player ever, how Ines is really going to be the #1 smartest person in her class, and how Eva really is going to design the best fashions, and how Seba is going to be president of the United States. So of course I talk ad nauseum about them, but I also talk ad nauseum about Miami. And they ask me, so what can go wrong? What do you worry about? And I'll tell you the only thing I worry about. Traffic, all that, hurricanes, all that. We can deal with all that. We've dealt with it before. We've dealt with a lot worse. The one thing that worries me about today, and I'm going to use tonight as kind of a call to arms, is the divide. There are two Miamis. There's the Miami that is here tonight, and there's the Miami that doesn't even know we exist. There's the Miami that is one paycheck away from being homeless. The Miami that cannot afford living in our community. I don't know how many of you really travel off into San Francisco, but if you've seen what's happened in San Francisco lately, we don't want to be San Francisco. We don't want to have that abyss of divide between the haves and have-nots. And it starts here. The same way of that call to arms starts here tonight. When I talk about this, people say to me, something needs to be done. Something starts with you. Something starts with you individually, because everybody in this can individually help. No different than you individually help in bringing and making Miami a tech hub. I mean, tonight we have examples of this. You have Bob Dickinson here, who dedicated his whole life to Camilo's house and helping the homeless. You have Dave Lawrence, right, who basically have dedicated. Bob Dickinson, a very successful CEO of Carnival. Dave Lawrence, a fantastically successful publisher, dedicated his life to early childhood, right? Think about, where's Chad? Guitars or guns, right? He's dedicating his life to these kids that you saw here tonight. I saw earlier here tonight Annie Lord, basically. She's dedicated her life to the homeless. So we have a lot of these examples. And what it means here is that each one of us individually can get up in the morning and say, I am really concerned. And not because in the news you see, I mean, if you see the local news, you're going to see this incredible divide. And most of the news, unless it's occasionally in spring break in Miami Beach, doesn't really affect you because it's in areas of Miami that we don't really touch. That divide is really something that could really be significantly deteriorating of our way of life. And I'm very concerned about that. That's the one thing that concerns me, and I would love for all of you to think about this after you leave here tonight, and over the next few weeks and months, etc. What can I personally do to help narrow that divide? Anyways, I think tech is here, the critical mass is here, great times are coming for us in that aspect of it. So I think that's all kind of primed already. I just really, that area is the one area that you really need to be concerned about. So anyways, look, I don't know, this is a little overwhelming for me tonight, seeing all of you here just to help me celebrate, and again, to all of you. And I just want to tell you that, I'll leave you with this thought. I learned a long time ago, heard a long time ago, that when you're born, you know, you have a lot of people around you laughing and you're crying, right? And when you die, depending how you live your life, you will have a lot of people crying and you're laughing, right? In my particular case, they're going to be crying a lot when I die, because what's going to happen is they would have opened my will and they would have saw that there's nothing. I gave it all away. Thank you very much.
The beauty of Manny using a handheld mic is he can drop the mic. There's no power greater than the power to make dreams come true and to inspire, and I think Manny embodies that.